Welcome to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I want to be putting a head-to-head together with two of golf's powerhouses, the TaylorMade P790 versus the Titleist T200. These clubs are very, very similar if you look at them on paper. However, I've hit some balls today and there's an interesting difference that I need to share with you before you go ahead and purchase one of these golf clubs. Now, it's important to note before we even get into hitting any of the shots with these clubs, I've got 7 irons to test. I've got 30.5 degrees of loft out of both of these 7 irons, and therefore you would think that the numbers that we get from them are going to be pretty much the same. From the website, TaylorMade saying that their new generation of the P790 is engineered to deliver optimal launch, increased forgiveness, and enhanced consistency, whereas Titleist say that their T200 is the player's distance iron for players who want to add distance and forgiveness without compromising on looks, feel, trajectory, and stopping power. But how do we actually get stopping power? Well, that's to do with the descent angle coming into the green. Obviously, spin has a good factor of that as well. But if we look at the 10 shots that I've just hit with these clubs, I'm getting 48.1 degree angle coming into the greens for the Titleist compared to 47.1 of what I'm getting out of the TaylorMade. So to be fair to what Titleist is saying, they're giving us a little bit more of a steeper descent angle. It might only be 1 degree, but that might make a difference. Now, there's 3 big differences that I noticed when I looked down at these two clubs. The Titleist is offering me more of a chrome, kind of shiny kind of look, whereas the TaylorMade is giving me more of a sort of a matte finish. And again, it all comes down to the personal preference for that. For me, there's a real big difference when it comes to the top line. The Titleist, remember, is for players that want distance. So players want something that's maybe a little bit thinner on that top line, whereas the TaylorMade giving us maybe a thicker option on that top line. I'm kind of leaning more towards a thinner top line because that's what I'm used to. However, for lots of players out there, for the handicap range that possibly TaylorMade are looking at, this thicker top line is going to give so many players that much more confidence when they look down at the ball, just feel like they've got maybe that little bit more forgiveness, which again, TaylorMade have focused on with this iron. And then it's kind of like the real estate behind the ball. Probably that Titleist just looking just that little bit smaller when you look down setting up behind that golf ball, and maybe that's a combination of the chrome look and also that thinner top line, whereas the TaylorMade, again, real estate wise, just looks so much bigger behind that ball. Again, maybe it's something to do with the matte finish, maybe it's to do with that thicker top line, but there's definitely a difference between these two clubs, of which is going to be a key factor when it comes to choosing what you kind of want to look down at. So starting off with the Titleist, remember both these clubs are hollow body construction, and you can sometimes feel that. It kind of feels like a trampoline effect off the face. However, the feel off the face, I'm not kind of getting that trampoline effect. I'm getting more of a solid feel off the club face of this T200. There was sort of something talked about in the previous model where the back plate on this T200 kind of felt a bit, almost like a bit plasticky. I'm still getting that sense of that sort of tin effect, but it's definitely more of a feel of metal rather than plastic in this model. But ultimately they've got to encase the club because it is, like I said, a hollow body construction. So by using that metal plate, again, I think it's a bit better. I'm definitely sensing that it's a little bit better than what we had on the previous model. So Titleist saying that they've enhanced the feel from this T200 iron, and I did say earlier that I felt like it was maybe a little bit more solid off the face compared to the previous model. Well, they've stiffened up the chassis on this iron, which they're saying is giving us that more rigid kind of solid feel off the face. Now they're saying that they've improved the tungsten inside the head of the club. Now manufacturers do this as they work through generation to generation. So what you're finding with Titleist head is that they've moved the tungsten around to give us better scoring opportunities. How we're doing this, unless we were inside looking at this club, I don't know, and I'd have to go from generation to generation and speak to them direct. But what they're saying is by moving that tungsten around, they've able to dial in those numbers just that little bit more. Titleist also focusing very much on the look behind the ball. I did talk about the difference between the two clubs, but Titleist focusing on a cleaner look that's very similar in blade length and offset to the T100 and the T150, which is their sort of Tour cavity back irons. And finally, the variable bounce sole design in this club. This is something that Titleist have really focused on, brought it into the old T100 iron and have now launched it into the T200, getting some success and some really good stories from Tour to say that they've improved this sole to help with that turf interaction, basically allowing you to get that club into the turf and out of the turf in the most efficient way possible. Then we look at the P790, and TaylorMade offering us a progressive CG movement within the heads of these clubs throughout the set. So when it comes to the kind of like the scoring irons of your sort of wedges to maybe 8 iron, you're going to see that CG just a little bit higher. The idea of this is to get that flight just a little bit flatter. And as you kind of work up into the longer irons where you need that ball to launch off the club face a little bit more, giving you the little bit more height and the steeper descent angles for control into the greens, then what they're saying is they're pushing that CG just a little bit lower to be able to pop that ball up in the air for us. So whereas Titleist are focusing on tungsten weighting inside the head to give us the ultimate performance, TaylorMade talking about a thick, thin back wall construction using AI, artificial intelligence, to be able to position the mass in each head uniquely to be able to give us the ultimate performance with each club. TaylorMade then moving on to say they've now created an intelligent sweet spot. What am I kind of reading from this? Well, what we're seeing from a lot of manufacturers is they're focusing very much on the off-centered strikes. We don't always hit the middle of the bat. Therefore, we want to maintain good ball speeds off those off-centered strikes. And they're saying by moving from the previous generations, they've really enhanced this new one to give us that, well, give us the best ball speed possible from those mishits that we all tend to do on occasions. So TaylorMade saying that they're giving us that optimal launch and forgiveness from this new P790 head, but they've also focused on the sound and the feel off the club face, wanting to give you maybe a bit more of a premium feel. So inside this head, you've got the all-new internal sound stabilizing bar. Combine that with the ultralight speed foam air, and they're giving us more of a forwards feel off this 2023 head. But with all that tech, let's now look at the numbers of what both these clubs are giving me. P790 getting 117.4 mile an hour on an average off the club face. Compare that to the T200, which is actually getting me 118.8 mile an hour. So an extra 1 mile an hour ball speed out of that T200 iron. If we go to launch, very much the same, 18.4 with the TaylorMade compared to 18.6 with the Titleist. But spin numbers, this is the big one for me. This is where we're looking at control. We've got 5,777 revs on an average out of that P790 compared to 6,180 revs out of that T200. And that to me is a real game changer because ultimately you want control. Think about those wet conditions out on the golf course. Think about those semi-rough situations that you might find yourselves in. Well, those are going to take spin away from the golf club and the ball, and therefore you're going to lose control from front to back, and that's a really important one when it comes to choosing a set of golf clubs. Peaking out pretty much the same, 32 yards high with that P790 compared to 33 yards high with the T200, and then carry-wise, absolutely nothing in it. 165 yards as an average carry with that P790 compared to 165 yards out of the T200. So there is my compare of the Titleist T200 and the P790. I think from a feel and a looks point of view, they're actually very different and they're going to suit different golfers. If you want something with a little bit more real estate behind the ball, then the P790 is going to give you that confidence. Whereas if you're somebody that maybe just wants a sleeker look behind the ball, then the T200 probably has you covered. But the numbers indicate that we're getting maybe just a little bit more control from a spin point of view out of the T200. Now this comes down to my numbers that I'm getting today in the studio, and I always suggest go and test the irons for yourself. But I'd like to hear down in the comments, are you going to be looking at one of these clubs, and will you be actually going for a fitting with one of these two irons? If you like what you're seeing from these videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video.